energy. Let's go, go, plug in eco energy. Eco, eco. Go that eco energy. You know.
Welcome back to the Eco Energy Podcast. So today I have Conrad in studio with me, and we're going to be talking about a topic that comes up quite a bit with our residential service. Do I need to upgrade to 200 amp service? So today we're going to address some of those questions on, do I really need it? What does it look like if I don't upgrade? What are my other options? I guess we start with the first things first, Conrad. What does 200 amp service mean?
So think of it like a highway, right? If you have 2 lanes on a highway, you can get some cars through. But if you have a lot of cars that need to get through, you need more lanes, 4, 6, 8, whatever that is.
Right.
A house's electrical service is the exact same way, where you add more stuff. You add an EV charger, you add a hot tub, you add a heat pump. All this stuff, you all of a sudden need more capacity. So a lot of older homes that are built more than 20 or 25 years ago have either a 60 amp service or a 100 amp service.
I think actually up to 75% of the homes in most markets are 100 amps or less. Is that correct?
That's true. 77% I think was the statistic I saw, which is wild because we're starting to ask electric services to fuel transportation.
Yeah, that's a big ask for something that was never intended for.
Right.
So let's talk about first of all, how do the people check and see what they have? This is a big question we get from a lot of people.
Yep.
I look at a breaker and it says 100, and then the other breaker says 100, but they're tied together. Does that mean 100 or 200? What does that mean?
So that's a 100 amp service. You look and it's typically either the very top handle or the very bottom handle in your breaker panel, and it'll say something. It'll say 60, it'll say 100, 125, 150, 200. In some rare cases, you may even have 2 panels that say 200. And that is your service size. If it says 200 on the breaker, it's a 200 amp service, and it's not additive. So if you have a 100 amp breaker on top and another 100 amp breaker on bottom, that is still a 100 amp service.
So service is dependent upon how much power is coming in on each leg. That means 100 amps per leg means you have 100 amp service. 200 amps per leg means you have 200 amp service. Okay, so Conrad, why is this even coming up so much right now? We're hearing more about this now than ever. We're getting way more panel request changes than ever. We're probably doing 5 to 7 panel upgrades a week right now. This has all of a sudden become a big issue. What's going on in the market that's caused that?
Well, we're starting to electrify everything, right? We have EV chargers, which draw 30 to 60 amps of continuous load. We have electric ranges replacing your old gas ranges. You have heat pumps replacing furnaces. You have electric dryers replacing the old gas dryers. You've got tankless electric water heaters that are replacing your gas water heaters. Home offices are so much more of a thing now than they used to be. Right after COVID that started, those take electricity. Smart homes are natively run on electricity. It all adds up.
Yeah.
And that capacity is what changed
Yeah.
to make service upgrades much more necessary.
I mean, when I started in this business, most furnaces were gas, most ranges were gas, water heaters were gas. And now that we've switched over, a lot of people are going to electricity.
Yeah.
And it's a more stable power source, actually.
Right. And we're asking the home's electrical panel to fuel transportation.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing right now. Instead of going to the gas station, I plug in every night. So we're demanding a lot more out of our electrical services than we ever have.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, let's talk about some legitimate cases for service upgrades, because sometimes people really need them, and sometimes there are some options that they might not need it. So let's say 77% of the houses in America have 100 amps or less. The majority are going to be 100 amp services. So let's talk 100 amp services for now.
Yeah.
If you're adding, an EV charger, an electric heat pump, an electric range, a hot tub, many of those cases are going to require a full service upgrade. What you need to do to figure out if you actually need a service upgrade is you need to call an electrician.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do is they're going to provide a load calculation.
Right.
And what that does is that's based on the NEC, so the National Electric Code has set forward standards that we need to do that calculation by. So a good electrician will come in if you need to add an EV charger, for instance, and he's going to do a load calculation, and he's going to tell you, yeah, you know, we can install that EV charger. You actually don't have a ton of capacity elsewhere, or no, you actually don't have the capacity. We need to do something else. And that's really where a real load calculation matters, because guessing gets dangerous.
Right, right. Especially when it comes to your load side coming in. When you're exceeding that 80% rate on your 100 amp service or 200 amp service, you're taxing the wires because the wires are sized to 80%.
Yep.
So if you're exceeding that 80%, you're overtaxing those wires. You're going to cause heat, and heat, we all know, causes fires.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes we find in houses we're able to add in either load shedding devices or smart panels to help with that. And so it's not always, like, the end of the day, you don't always need a panel upgrade. So oftentimes you can use existing service conductors that are coming in without having to upgrade from the power company. So when we send a guy out to go look at a house, somebody say they want to add in a hot tub, or they want to add in an EV charger, they want to add in electric appliances. Right now, even a lot of heat pumps. We're seeing a huge swing from furnaces, especially in our market in the Chicago area, that has traditionally been zero heat pumps. And I think last year we put in, over 50 heat pumps.
Yeah.
And that's a huge jump. And that requires additional electricity because, and we're going to do a whole nother podcast on heat pumps alone, because heat pumps are a really interesting topic, because they actually operate at 200 to 300% efficiency. And most people don't understand, well, how is that even possible?
Right.
We'll explain all that at a later point. But the fact that people are using heat pumps to heat their homes instead of gas furnaces adds to your electric demand as well. So when would somebody when are we overselling it, right? This is a good question. Like, 200 amps on every single house would probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because the future is all electric. And the more we do things like everything from robotic vacuum cleaners to car chargers to every single thing that you need now is based on powering it somehow. Whereas years ago, they didn't even have dishwashers in the home.
Right.
So now we're asking electricity to wash our dishes. We're asking electricity to wash our clothes. We're asking electricity to power our vehicles for transportation. We're putting a lot of ask on this. And, people don't realize that a load center is actually rated at about a 20 to 25 year lifespan.
Right.
The panels that we typically replace are 50 plus years old. So people aren't even replacing them at the incremental manufacturer's recommendation as far as replacement rate goes. So let's talk a little bit more about age of panels, when we should think about increasing our amperage from 100 to 200 amp, and some of the future proofing that we can do while we're in there doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are a lot of options here. This is where we really like to personalize something to an individual's actual goals. Because if you have a 100 amp service and it's not a super old panel and you want to add maybe one of those things that we talked about, then you may not actually need a service upgrade.
You do load shedding.
Right.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah, you can do a load shedded EV charger, which is where you configure the charger to, it'll operate at the full 60 amps right up until the rest of the panel needs the load, in which case it'll drop off to whatever it needs to be to actually remain compliant and safe is the biggest thing that we think about.
100%.
If you have, gas heat and gas water heater, you may only be adding one EV, and especially if it's a load shedded EV, then you may not need a 200 amp service upgrade. But if we're getting into those things where, you may be upgraded to an electric range, and now you're adding an EV charger, and you have an older panel, then that's where we're going to come in here, and we're going to say the safe thing to do here is to upgrade your service, because the last thing we want is an electric fire. and because your family sleeps at your house,
Well, that's the scariest thing.
right?
Right. 100%. We don't want to put anybody in danger. So just because you're adding 40 amp charger doesn't mean you're pulling 40 amps all the time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And charging typically happens overnight when the rest of your house isn't using a ton of electricity, you know?
And electricity is way cheaper overnight than
Yeah.
during the day.
Yeah, many electric suppliers right now have programs like hourly pricing, like delivery time of day, that are incentivizing you to use some of that electricity at night. And the reason is because they want to move you over to using it at night as soon as possible, because it's going to happen pretty quick here where the grid can't support all the stuff that we're using.
Honestly, one of the most exciting things that I'm looking forward to is exploring our battery backup options,
Oh, yeah.
where we can load shed and use our batteries during peak times,
Yep.
thus taking that edge off that high demand rate,
Yeah.
you know, when it's 60 cents a kilowatt hour,
Yeah.
dropping it down to, you know, 8 cents a kilowatt hour overnight, charging up our batteries, and then using our batteries to power our appliances during peak load. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode too. Alternatives, smart panels, load management.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot available to drive down the cost of electricity,
Yeah.
and especially nowadays where people are, you know, their homes are air conditioned. They have high demand during those times. It's really difficult to plan that peak capacity planning
Right.
for that. So instead of the widening the highway, we can manage traffic better per
Exactly.
se. So we're load shedding. We're not using our EV charger during peak demand. We're not using our a lot of our heavy amperage appliances during that peak time.
And there is one more edge case that I want to talk to you about that's pretty interesting to me.
Okay.
Is if you say you already upgraded to a 200 amp service,
Yeah.
right? And you added in a lot of those electric appliances and you're loving it, you want to keep going. What happens when you run out of capacity on that 200 amp panel?
Yeah.
That conversation gets a lot more expensive even than the 100.
Well, we're seeing that a lot in some of the higher end houses where they have swimming pools. They're
Yeah.
adding in hot tubs. They're adding
Yeah.
in EV chargers, and then all of a sudden you're at 320 amps or 360 amps, and you're looking at a 400 amp service panel upgrade.
Yeah.
Now you're talking pricey. We did a 600 amp panel at a residence. It was a 12,000 square foot residence, and I want to say that was over $12,000
Yeah.
just for the underground.
The average range on a 400 amp service upgrade is $10,000 to $30,000.
Yeah.
And that's because the utility typically has to dig up their old lines and replace the new lines. A lot of the utilities have already the lines to support a 200 amp service upgrade, but they didn't plan for that 320 or 400 amp service upgrade.
Specifically in our area, if you have ComEd as your service provider and you have an underground service, that was rated for 200 amps. Very rarely will they have to go and change out the lines underground.
Yeah.
If you have overhead service, sometimes it was originally a 60 amp service, and they do have to upgrade the overhead lines, and there's a cost for that involved as well. So know that when you're adding in, going from 100 amp to 200 amp panel, you're not just changing the parts inside the house.
Right.
You're also changing how the power company is feeding your house, and that can add up, But we have to look at future proofing here.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always make sense for us to take out a 100 amp panel, put in a new 100 amp panel, even though it needs to be replaced. It makes financially a lot of sense to just upgrade to 200 amps at that point in time.
Right.
You're looking at an extra $1,000, $2,000 to increase your capacity and to allow for future proofing your house with the EV chargers and the spas and all the other electrical
Heat
things,
pumps, all that stuff.
steam showers. We see a lot of demand. The broilers that we see, kitchen appliances. We've got in a kitchen that we did. We had a 50 amp broiler. We had a 50 amp pizza oven. We had a 50 amp another reheating stove. You're looking at just running those three appliances. You're at 150 amps with three appliances. So yeah, future proofing is really important here, and I think that's a strong consideration.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what is it going to cost me if I need to upgrade my panel? I mean, budget wise, I know it's all over the board, and I know that we go in some houses and you've got finished basement and your power lines are running across the basement. Sometimes you have Romex in the house that needs to be eradicated. Sometimes we have, because we're in a county,
Suburbs of Chicago.
yeah, suburbs of Chicago, Cook County, and a lot of Northwest Indiana. We have to use conduit for everything. Even our residential homes use conduit.
Yep.
So, if there's Romex in there, we have to get rid of that. We have to change out our underground grounding. We have to increase wire size over to the water bond
Yep.
for our MGC, and then also add in grounding rods, because a half-inch grounding rod is no longer able to be used for 200 amp service. So you got a new ground rod, a new water bond, a new meter panel. If you have overhead service, new overhead conductors. Sometimes it's a new riser. We got to go to a 2.5 or 3-inch conduit for a drop. All of those things add up.
If you're on the most recent NEC, you also need an outdoor disconnect. All different things that can wildly change.
That was a couple NECs ago, but
yeah. Well, if you're on the newest one, you still need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, the cost varies widely.
Okay.
I would say at a floor,
Give me a low ball.
Low ball, $3,000.
$3,000.
You can do a 100 amp to 200.
That's very low, easy, walk in, walk out. They got 15, 20 circuits, no big deal. We're not doing anything else. $3,000.
Exactly.
But that we price a lot of those out, and I think more reasonable expectation would be about 5,000 to 7,000 would be about more average.
Yeah.
However, you now have an upgraded electrical system that is to modern code. You've got your grounding system reestablished, because how many ground rods have you found with that have just completely disintegrated?
A lot.
A lot. And what happens? Your ground rod is mainly for the purpose of redirecting static current from lightning down back to the earth, the fastest path back to earth. So if we don't have a good path back to earth, what happens?
Well, you get electrical surges, essentially, a wild
Fry
amount
out all
of
our
voltage
appliances.
that will fry everything
Fry
in that
TVs,
house.
fry microwaves, fry every single computers, every electronic circuit that you have.
Yep.
So when we're doing our service upgrade, oftentimes and if you're on 2020 or newer NEC, I think it's 2020. You can correct me. I'm sure the comments will be full of corrections on my code interpretation. But I think 2020 was where they required surge protection.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now we put surge protectors on new panels because that's just the best thing to do, you know. And we want to protect that investment that you have on all of your electronics, and the best way to do that is through proper grounding and then surge protection as well.
Yeah.
Final takeaways, Con. What do you think? You think it's a good idea to future-proof your house? You think it's a good idea to upgrade?
Absolutely. And at the very least, get a professional's opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Call an electrician out, have them do a load calculation. Don't look at the panel and, oh, look at that, I have a bunch of open spaces, I should be fine, because that's not how it works.
That's not an indicator. Just because I have checks, I have money in the bank, right?
Right,
it's not
exactly.
The same. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
And also, don't automatically upgrade unless it's actually required. You want to actually know that what you're doing is the best place to spend your money.
Yeah, I will say I have seen a lot of, especially in our commercial buildings, they want to know when the electrical was upgraded.
Right.
When you're buying a new home, when you're getting a home inspection, oftentimes they'll ask, well, when was the panel upgraded? When was your electrical upgraded? Because that will actually factor into your home insurance costs as well.
Yeah.
So by investing that small amount of money into your home, will ensure another 20, 25 years of longevity. You're up to code. You know you're safe. Tell me about that one recent call we had. I think you said it was a guy who called because their neighbor's house caught on fire and the kids were...
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
Yeah, so there was a guy who has two little kids, a son and a daughter, and his neighbor's house actually caught on fire, and both of his kids were home, and they saw that. They saw the flames literally coming out of the windows.
Wow.
And he gave me a call, and he was like, hey, can you just come by and take a look at my electrical system? Because I want to be able to sleep right at night and know that my kids are safe. And I actually, I went by and I took a look and I found, I think, 5 things that needed just a little tweak.
Yeah.
Nothing major. It was a half a day, but those things will ensure that his house is safe and that his electrical system is safe.
And oftentimes you have Chuck in a truck coming by. Oh, I know electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Oh, you need your laundry done too? Yeah, we do that. And they're not licensed electricians, and they don't know the requirements, and they don't know that what they're doing is unsafe and could potentially hurt you.
Yeah.
As a licensed electrician, having a licensed electrician in there in your home, looking over your panel, verifying that the installation is correct, checking voltages, checking your grounding system, making sure all that is done properly, is going to save you a whole lot of headache and a whole lot of nightmare later on. Electricity isn't something to play with.
No.
It is not recommended. In fact, every manual that wherever it involves electricity, it always has a disclosure, please consult a licensed electrician.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. Our electricians have hundreds of hours of training. They have their licensing. They have it's something that you think that blue wire, red wire, white wire, right? Funny story, my grandfather, who was an immigrant from Italy, came over and my grandparents passed during COVID, and it was very sad, but my grandfather he could fix anything. That guy, he was a master at fixing anything. And we were going through the house, and it required a municipal inspection, and he had the old fuse type, the Edison type fuses, and the old screw ins, and the village required an upgrade. So I opened up the panel cover, and I see every single wire in the whole panel is blue. Regardless of, I think blue wire was on sale that week. So we ran our neutrals in blue, we ran our hots in blue, we ran everything in blue. And we had to go in there and gut everything and redo it all. And what's funny is, as a kid, I remember working in his garage. He had a steel cutting table saw, and every time I would touch it, I'd get electrocuted. Well, I'd get shocked, And he thought it was the funniest thing. But come to find out, he had the electric hooked up wrong. No path back to ground.
Yeah.
So whatever happened out there, you're gonna sit there and fry until you're able to let go of that. So all that to say, throughout the years, especially in older homes, newer homes are done pretty well, up to grade, up to standard, with arc fault breakers, with GFI breakers. The older homes, you really need to get a licensed professional in there to take a look at it, to verify that everything is up to speed and up to code.
Yeah.
And to be fair, most electricians that I know of, and I know of a lot of electricians in this market, none of them are looking to try and make a job any bigger than it's necessary.
No.
We want to get you safe. We want to make sure that your family's safe. We want to make sure that you have capacity, do a little bit of future proofing. But I don't know any electricians out there that are really overselling the upgrades for electrical. So I would say whoever you call, you're likely to be able to trust them.
Yeah.
Definitely look at their Google reviews.
Yeah.
Make sure people aren't going, oh, this guy came out here and decided to hose us over.
Yeah.
But and also talk to them about your future needs, your plans. Hey, we're planning on putting a pool in 2 years. Hey, that might lead to a hot tub, or we want to remodel our main floor bathroom and put a steam shower in. Any of these upgrades that, whether you think they require electricity or not, likely they do.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to ask them about it while they're out there, saying, hey, do I have the capacity to do this or that? And I think you'll get a really good understanding of where you're at, how many amps you're currently pulling, what your usage is, and what it could potentially be. It is a wealth of information that you'll be glad that you had.
Oh,
They'll also be able to identify any major problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been on I don't know how many houses that we've looked at, and you open the panel cover box and you actually can see arcing going on.
Yeah.
And that there's your fire hazard, right?
I actually have some personal experience with that. That's recent. I was at a club one day, and it's one that I'm a member of the board on, and I like to just take a feel of the breakers whenever I'm over there.
Yeah.
And this one time I was over there, and I felt them, and it was like scorching hot.
Yeah.
And so, that prompted me to do a little investigation. I took a thermal camera,
Yep.
and I found out that there was an issue that was causing arcing in that panel.
Yeah.
That had it not been caught, because I was just doing a little impromptu inspection, that would have been
And
a
a
big
good
problem.
a good electrician will have a thermal camera out there with
Yeah.
him. The thermal camera will identify where your heat is coming from. And while it's normal to have some heat, because anytime you have a connection, you're going to have heat.
Yep.
While it's normal to have some heat, it's not normal to have excessive heat. And the breakers are rated for 75 degrees C or 67 degrees C, whatever the rating on the breaker is. You'll be able to measure that using a thermal camera, a thermal imager,
Yep.
and figure out if you're gonna melt down the breaker.
Yeah.
We've literally seen breakers melt down, and once you have that happen, you have live conductors in the panel, and you have potential for a literal explosion.
Yeah.
And that's where you run into more serious trouble than just a shock here or there.
Yep.
Yeah. So just a little tip. And a lot of people don't realize this. As an electrician, and having a bunch of electricians that work for us, whenever you get shocked, you need to go get checked out in the ER. They need to do an EKG and make sure that your heart is still in rhythm, because
Yep.
even a small shock can result in getting your heart off pace.
Yep.
And that can lead to really devastating effects long term. I actually had an electrician friend of mine who was driving home from work after swapping out a panel, and he had actually gotten shocked a little bit when he was doing it. I wasn't careful with his wires, didn't have his safety
Not wearing his
equipment
arc
on,
flash suit. Yeah.
not wearing gloves, and his Apple Watch went off and said, "You need to get to the hospital immediately." It actually detected an arrhythmia or an offbeat in his heart.
Yep.
And he went to the hospital, and they gave him the old shock treatment, zapped him right back into gear, and he's back going. So these are things you don't want to take lightly. You want to make sure to have good quality people.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're good here.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think we covered pretty much everything.
If you guys have any questions, make sure to comment in the comment section below, and we'll answer your questions. If you got ideas for future podcasts, we're always
Yeah.
looking for those. We've got a nice long list for you. We're going to be coming at you once a week now that we've swapped locations. We've got a little better recording studio here. Hopefully our audio is better and
It
less
should be.
background noise.
It should be.
Well, thanks, Conrad. I appreciate your input. As always, you're a pleasure to work with.
Thanks for having me. See you next week.
Bye.